So you're interested in tree climbing. You've watched plenty of videos on it. The thing is, now you start looking at the prices and it can be expensive. What we're going to talk about today is how you can get into tree climbing with a less amount of money and still be safe. If you will, a poor man's climbing setup. One of your most important pieces of gear when you're going to climb a tree is going to be your rope. You got to make sure that if you're going to buy a rope, it's going to be from an arborist supply company and it's rated for tree climbing. Now, in the tree care world, there's a few different types of climbing. Since we're talking about a poor man's setup, I think we should talk about the moving rope system. That's the basic beginnings of tree climbing. And with that, there are ropes that are, specifically for the MRS system. Also, there's another advanced system called the stationary rope system. In a stationary rope system, you use mechanical devices and ascenders. So the coating on those are more, they'll last a lot longer with that type of a rope. The thing is, on some of those, they're static and you can't use it for MRS. If you're going to think about climbing for a while, it's probably good to get a rope that's good for MRS and SRS. That way, you start at the beginning, and if you start getting better at it and you decide to go to the stationary rope system, you already have a rope in place. Now, if you just want to learn tree climbing, maybe you're a rec climber and all you're going to do is the MRS system, then just get one for MRS. Sometimes your rope can last around 5 years if you're a climber who climbs all the time. If you're somebody who is like a rec climber, you might have a rope that can last up to almost 10 years. But it's important to get a good quality rope. Next, we got a saddle. So with a saddle, you can go really less expensive, maybe starting around 230 bucks. And then you can go higher from there. So a less expensive saddle would be something like this. That's a bench style. It has all the components you need for climbing. It has a front D-rings and it has side D-rings. It has some nice backing to it and a nice bench seat. The thing is, with something like this, it may not be as comfortable as something that is more advanced, but if you're looking to do it less expensive, something like this would be a great option. Now, if you're thinking like, if you're just going to be a rec climber, well, this would be great. If you want to do it for a living and you're trying to get a setup for future, maybe a more expensive saddle. So some of the other saddles that they have that's a little bit more expensive in a $700 and maybe up range would be something like this, where they have individual leg straps, still with the same backing. They have all the D-rings and components. Some also have multiple attachments and even some rope bridges that you can use. It's going to be up to you how much you want to spend. If you're thinking long-term or just rec, an inexpensive saddle would be great too. Definitely, you're going to have to buy it from an arborist supply company, and you never want to buy something used because it's going to be for you. Here's another important part of your climbing setup. This is a lanyard. This is a real inexpensive one. It's a friction loop lanyard. These may start around 80 bucks, but some lanyards can go up to $200. The more options you have with a lanyard, the more money it'll be. You have some lanyards that have a friction-based setup and a mechanical grip, so those can come up to like 200 bucks. It's going to be up to you what you want to spend, but you could get something as simple as this. Also, we've made videos on how to create a lanyard for less money. It's going to be up here somewhere, and you might like to have a look at those. Another real important part of tree climbing is your tree climbing helmet. You definitely want to make sure it's a tree climbing helmet, that it's rated for tree climbing. You want to make sure that it has a chin strap. Having that trim strap will allow, or you'll make sure that if you take a slip and your helmet won't fall off and you won't hit your head on the tree. It's real important to have a helmet that has a chin strap. Also, it should be rated for climbing. You could find a helmet that's rated for tree climbing as little as 80 bucks, and it can go all the way up to 500, depending on what your choice is in a helmet. You don't want to skimp on not having a helmet. It's real important to have one when you climb. If you're doing it for rec, you don't want to get hurt, and if it's for work, you definitely have to have one. Even if you're going to be a rec climber, it's important to have safety glasses. They can be really inexpensive. Like you could buy some for maybe $3 to $4, and you can go up to maybe $40. Like I mentioned, even if you're a wreck climber, if you're going to be climbing up a tree, there are some trees that have spiky leaves or needles. You want to make sure that your eyes are covered. And if you're doing it for work, you definitely want to do it. If it's for work, you definitely want to make sure that they're Z87 in America. That means they're certified through ANSI or Cal OSHA. Also, if you wear glasses like I do, having safety shields, they're a great option. Or if you're going to do it for work long term and you have a prescription, you might consider getting yourself a pair of prescription safety glasses, kind of like these. Now these are a lot more money. They might run around $200. If you're going to do it for work and you do see better with a prescription, that might be something that you want to think about when you're getting into tree climbing. That you can have glasses as little as maybe $2 to $3 that'll save your eyes, and it's really important. I want to take a minute to hear from our sponsors, the BINO H channel. We've got videos from the basic beginning of an MRS system, and we go all the way up to the SRS system. We also have videos on tree identification. If you're somebody who's interested in tree climbing from the beginning, maybe not knowing anything about how to climb, and to be able to become a climbing arborist, check our channel out. I'm sure we can help. All right, let's get back to the video. Next, we'll talk about work boots. Now you can go ahead and get an $80 pair of work boots, and they'll work just fine. If you're planning on doing this for recreation, you could even get a pair of work boots that are not steel toe, and they'll work fine in the tree. If you're someone who's planning on doing this for a living and you're going to do work, you'd be better off buying a pair of work boots that are steel toe, because once you get out of the tree, you'll work on the ground, and there could be instances where a log could land on your foot. Now, I've seen some, there are more expensive options. Like if you're a climber, there are professional climbing boots. Now those are great. They have chainsaw protection and steel toe. Those are great to have. If you're going to be somebody who's going to be in tree care and that's what you're leaning to, that might be a good option for you. They're really expensive compared to like $80 to $100 pair. Those tree climbing work boots could be up from $400 and higher. Anyhow, you don't really have to get those off the beginning, especially if you're a wreck climber or if you're someone who's just starting out. I use a pair of Caterpillar work boots for years, steel toe. For most of my career, I use regular work boots. There is a difference though between a regular work boot and an arborist grade work boot. The arborist boots, if you're going to be climbing in the trees and you're going to spend any time in the tree, the sole of those are a heck of a lot better on your feet. They have a steel shank, so it doesn't allow the branches to bend on your foot. It's a lot more comfortable. But honestly, if you're brand new to the trade, or even if you're a wreck person, having a good solid pair of work boots will be just fine. Next, we're going to talk about gloves and climbing. Actually, they're an option. You don't really have to have gloves. Some people really enjoy climbing without gloves. I've always liked to have gloves. Before I used to climb with leather gloves, but they're a bit slippery for me. I really had a hard time with that. I really enjoy having these style of gloves. They're cloth and rubber. They really grip well on the rope, and it's less pain on your hand actually. But honestly, ropes are only an option. You don't really need it. But something like this you can buy in a hardware store or anywhere, and you can get them for really inexpensive, $3 maybe. Anyhow, you don't really need gloves. It's an option, so it's up to you. Now that you've collected all of your gear for your poor man climbing setup, what you can do is, you have your saddle, you got your lanyard, you got everything. To set up your climbing line, you can connect to the D-rings, or if it's a ring or whatever it is, you can just get your rope directly, make your setup, use something like a running bowline, or not a running, just a regular bowline. Okay. Get your setup here. All right. This is going to be your friction hitch that you would use. Now you can, like I said, you can connect directly to your front D-rings for your support. Now right over here, this is the bridge, and on this bridge here, you climb to the other part of your rope that's over the branch. Okay. Now this is a Blake's hitch. This is one, you know, a friction hitch that you can use. Okay. You're going to tie, dress, and set it. Okay. Finish it off with a stopper. A stopper is at the end of this tail here. All right. So now this is something that you could climb with. You know, there's a little bit of, it's kind of time consuming because if you start on low branches, you have to untie all of this. Now you can, with an addition of a clip, you only have to untie and redo this if you're advancing over branches. So over here on this setup, here, it's the same setup, except for now you added a clip. So now when you're climbing and if you're advancing, you only have to untie this, send this over the branch and back to you. So this is what you have to untie multiple different times. Also, if you were new to this and this is the type of gear that you're using, if you have something like a shot bag, you could throw high into the tree, connect your rope to it, and then it would kind of alleviate some of the time untying and tying the knot. Because if you get a high tie-in point, you just use this setup and you could work a tree. Well, there you have it. All the components you need for a poor man's climb setup. It might seem kind of expensive, but I think we've gone over some pretty good options for the least amount of money that you can get into it for. And honestly, it's something that if you guys are interested in, and you do, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. I've been doing it for more than 30 years, and I got to tell you, every time I get up into a tree, I really enjoy it. One of my most favorite things to do. Anyhow, if you're going to be doing this, the tree climbing, do it low and slow, take your time, and enjoy it. All right, see you next time. Take care.